On July 10th, 2016, two men are seen entering the entrance of a bank in Taipei. They are wearing medical masks and fisher hats. One of the men is guarding the entrance, while the other is standing in front of the automated teller machine. He does not perform any actions, such as withdrawing money with a card or attempting to blow it up. Instead, he simply waits. The ATM begins to spit out banknote after banknote. All he needs to do is collect the money. When a stranger approaches, the two men immediately abort their attempt and leave. The stranger will find the cash just lying there, despite the fact that it does not exactly look like it. He just walked into a massive heist while those two men were collecting their money. 20 other men did the same thing at other branches. This is just one piece of a larger operation. A complex assault that lasted for 2 years. It was one of the largest bank heists in history, orchestrated by hackers from the Carbonac Group. They are led by an elusive mastermind, but on this one night in Taipei, he and his team made a crucial mistake that will cost them a lot of money. Carbono was a game-changer. It shook the global financial system to its very foundation. More than 100 banks in over 30 countries had their funds stolen, totaling approximately $1 billion. I believe that the attackers are able to impersonate others because they know the password of the administrator. At that time, we were aware that they were monitoring what we were doing, since it is really difficult to stop a piece of code. The actual events that occurred during this hack are known, but the names of the banks that were attacked and the employees who were involved were never disclosed. In order to tell this story, Maxim, that's it. It's the 8th of April, a typical Tuesday. He works in a Ukrainian bank. He's a well-respected employee, but he has a poor habit of not downloading his Windows updates. As he drinks his coffee and thinks about the receptionist, he has a crush on her. He receives an email from his colleague. The mail arrives, and it is from Sergei, his colleague. There is a Word document attached to the mail, and it translates into conformity with Federal Statute 115. The date is 2/17/2014. This seems like it should be considered significant. Maxim clicks on it, reads it, and then closes it. He then continues with his very ordinary workday. A few months later, Maxim is sitting in a meeting with his boss, who appears to be in a state of distress. Some of his bank's automated teller machines began spitting out banknotes at seemingly random times of the day. It appears as though whoever was fortunate enough to show up at the right time could just grab the money. The bank may have been the victim of a cyber attack, and employees should be cautious and avoid suspicious emails. Conferences by email. What if you want to throw in the towel and develop something of your own? For many people, stress colossal hacks are the same tale every day. What if you want to construct something of your own? The bank hired Kaspersky to investigate their problem. All your ATMs are empty. You know that something has happened. This is your thunder. He was part of the team on the case. He checks the hard disks of the affected ATMs for malware and finds nothing. A few months later, Ferv receives a call in the middle of the night, around 3 o'clock in the morning. There was not a single suspicious action, and there was not even a single trail to pursue. The person who is calling is an account manager who works for a huge Russian bank. He says that he and his team need to contact his IT guy as soon as possible. A couple of minutes later, one of Wonder's Kaspersky co-workers shows up at a bank in Russia. The IT guy on the site is in a state of panic because apparently someone has gained control over their domain controller, which is the core of their server network. If you control the domain controller in a Windows environment, you basically control everything, and without a good reason, it is sending data to China. The Kaspersky specialist starts to look for malware right away. Eventually, he finds software that lets you watch and control a computer remotely. Could it be that the intruder is watching them right now? He has an idea. He opens a Word document and writes the Russian word for hello. They wait for a few minutes. Nothing happens. Then suddenly the cursor moves and letters appear. The hacker answered. He adds in Russian, "You will not catch us?" To which the Kaspersky employee replies, "We will catch you." "No, you will not catch us." "Okay, it's odd. You..." This section is all about unmasking Carbonac. It will take some time, but ultimately the Kaspersky team will locate the virus. It is similar to the Garber Trojan, and one of the configuration files of the malware is named ANAC. As a result, the team has decided to call it Carbon AC. It will take some time, but ultimately the Kaspersky team will locate the virus. It is similar to the Garber Trojan, and one of the configuration files of the malware is named ANAC. As a result, the team has decided to call it Carbon AC. This incident at the Russian bank provided Hill and his colleagues with clues about what is going on, and they link it all back to those hacked ATMs in Ukraine. Now that they have this information, they are able to reconstruct how the Carbon AAC hackers operate. Now let's go back to the beginning. This is one of the Carbon Act hackers once more. It is the 8th of April 2014, and he has already gained access to Sergei's email account. However, he wants access to Maxim's computer, so he sends out this email with that attachment. The word file exploits vulnerabilities in Microsoft Word in order to download malware that contains the backdoor. Additionally, the hacker is now able to access Maxim's PC remotely. The next step is to acquire access to the whole network, and he is well aware of how to do this. The hacker installs a particular piece of software on Maxim's computer, which causes it to run more slowly. This causes Max to become frustrated, so he calls the IT guy to come over and check. By the time the IT guy arrives, the hacker has already installed a key logger, which will allow him to see everything that is typed into Maxim's keyboard. In order to accomplish this, the IT guy needs to type in his admin password. Bingo! The hacker has the admin's password. He then tries it out on the domain controller, and sure enough, it is the same. Now he is able to search for the computer in the network that manages the money, transfers, and the ATMs. However, he does not immediately attack the computer. Instead, he quietly observes the employees who are in charge of managing the transactions. Once he has a complete understanding of the process, he proceeds to steal the money that was developed by the Carbonet group. To avoid suspicion, one method is to transfer money from so-called transaction management accounts to their own accounts. They do this by increasing the balances by the amount that was stolen in advance, while maintaining the total amount unchanged. This is because banks check accounts only once every 10 hours, so the transfers are not noticed. Another method is to take control of specific ATMs and allow them to spill out banknotes directly into the hands of money mules. Money mules are individuals who are hired through the mob and are responsible for collecting the money and sending it to their bosses. In exchange, they receive a small cut of the money. The third technique has the highest level of sophistication. The hackers create a few bank accounts in the names of their money mules, including debit cards. They then make sure that all of the accounts have the same small amount on them, for example, $3.33. After that, they update the database of the bank, exchanging that $3.33 for 1 million. Instantaneously, all of the money mules have $1 million in their bank accounts. They simply use their debit cards to withdraw the cash. As a result of the database update, some customers of the bank who were previously broke will suddenly find themselves to be millionaires. The more the Kaspersky team understands the methods of the Carbon Act group, the more they begin to comprehend the complexity of this operation. They are able to take down some of their servers, but then the hackers start using different tools and continue to work under the radar. By the beginning of 2015, Carbon Act had robbed at least 100 financial institutions in almost 30 countries. The majority of the victims are in Russia, but some of them are also in the United States. Kaspersky teams up with Europol, major European banks, and various national law enforcement agencies to hunt them down. Both Europe and China. Within 2 years, they steal roughly $1 billion. They appear to be unstoppable until someone screws up. The first bank reported that over 70 million NT was withdrawn illegally. The withdrawals were made in both Taipei and Taizhou across 34 ATMs and 20 branches in July 2016. Carbanak attacks the so-called first bank in Taipei, but the Taiwanese police are quick on their feet, very quick. At least 500 police officers checking the CCTVs. We check all the footage from the ATMs and back to the hotels of all the suspects. 22 money mules, most of them Russian, the rest from Eastern European countries. Both Europe and China. Within 2 years, they steal roughly $1 billion. They appear to be unstoppable until someone screws up. The first bank reported that over 70 million new Taiwan dollars were withdrawn illegally. The withdrawals were made in both Taipei and Taichung across 34 ATMs and 20 branches in July 2016. Carbanak attacks the so-called first bank in Taipei, but the Taiwanese police are quick on their feet, very quick. At least 500 police officers check the CCTVs. We check all the footage from the banks and back to the hotels of all the suspects. 22 money mules, most of them Russian, the rest from Eastern European countries. 19 of them successfully flee Taiwan, but 3 remain in the country with the money. Their faces are all over the media. To escape, they have to get rid of the money somehow. One of them hides 2 sports bags with some of the money at the Donghu Park. He then flees to Yong County and hides there. But he is caught and leads the police back to the sports bags. But instead of 2, there's only 1 left. An elderly man found one of the bags and took it home. He probably thought that was fortune from God. The police seize the second bag and search for the other money mules. A man called Bobby hides the rest of the money in 2 suitcases and stows them in 2 lockers at Taipei Central Station. Shortly after, 2 other men from Eastern Europe arrive in Taiwan and collect the suitcases from the main station. They go to a hotel to have brunch. As they sit down, they're interrupted by the police. Put down the knife and fork. Stay calm. Don't move. Come with us, they say. The police ask the men to take them to their hotel room. In their hotel room, law enforcement finds banknotes that are worth roughly $1.5 million. The Taiwanese police managed to recover 90% of the stolen money. The 3 money mules are sentenced to a little over 4 years in prison. These guys are just low-level operatives, but on the phone of one of the men, the Taiwanese police find pictures of stacks of money in various currencies. They also find emails from the suspected head of the Carbanak group. Europol, the FBI, cybersecurity companies and several authorities from different countries work tirelessly to find Carbanak. Mastermind? They have no idea that he is hidden all the way across the world and enjoying a life of luxury. Nobody knows about him. This is Dennis, and he is a Ukrainian, but he currently resides in Alicante, Spain, with his wife and son. He is a rather private person, and he doesn't really leave the house right now. As is his custom, he is coding new malware. He is one of the best of his trade, and he tries to keep a low profile. He spends the majority of his money in Bitcoin. At the time, he was worth 15,000 Bitcoins, which was equivalent to approximately $162 million, which is equivalent to more than $1 billion. However, there are some things that Bitcoin cannot buy. For example, not many sellers of cars or houses prefer to be paid in digital currencies. Therefore, he must use real money to purchase these items, which leaves traces. This is what tipped off the authorities. They begin to track the money, and in the end they uncover the identity of the person. His laptop is still on and unlocked. The forensic team immediately starts to collect evidence. The authorities will seize 2 BMWs and jewellery valued at $500,000 and, of course, his bitcoins. But the vast majority of the stolen $1 billion remains missing to this day. Dennis Kay may have been the mastermind behind the Carbon Act operation, but he certainly didn't work alone. We think there was quite a big team, at least between 10 and 30 people altogether, that was able to pull this scheme off. You can find the same piece of code being used by different groups, and it's very hard as a security researcher to know the difference. Which group is using what code, because the code is very similar. It's very hard to arrest a piece of code. In late 2018, 3 Ukrainians were arrested who were allegedly involved as well: the Carbonaki, Joker Stash, Carbon and Cobalt Spider. Experts suspect that those Russian cybercriminals are given free rein by the Russian government in order to cause chaos in the Western world. The Carbonat Group exploited a vulnerability in Microsoft Word, one that had already been fixed 3 years prior. But Maxim was too distracted to install those Windows updates. Therefore, it is important to ensure that your systems are always up to date. Doing so could save your employer a couple of $1 million. Maxim's bank lost millions of dollars, and we now know that this could have been easily avoided.